All right, so we've got a couple of images. We've got this lovely one of the fish. We've got Stinky Lobster. I think I'm going to set it up with Stinky Lobster. So you have an image that is not named, it's just photo3-1.jpg. If I double click on this file from my Finder, right, I'm in Finder. If I double click, it opens it in the default program of Preview. Now, if you're learning Photoshop and you don't realize that, you can sit here for 15 minutes looking for your layers and your panels and oh my gosh, where it doesn't have any of that stuff because you're just in the wrong program. So check up here, always next to the apple, will tell you what program you're in. I'm going to quit that. Preview, quit. I don't want to be in Preview. I can right click on the image, open with, and you'll see the default is Preview. That's not what I want. I want Photoshop. And that will launch Photoshop. Right. You can also open the file from Photoshop by launching Photoshop first, or you can launch it, open the file from Bridge. All right, there's several different ways. So let's just take a little look around what we've got in our workspace. So we have our toolbar. I'm going to double click on it to make it 2 up. Depending on how much workspace you have, if you have a larger monitor, if you have 2 monitors, you may want to have, your panels out and kind of all over the place. This is a pretty normal screen. It's an adequate amount of workspace. But if you have a second monitor, that's going to be where you put all your panels. So for now, I'm going to set up my workspace in kind of a conservative way. Let me shut those. So we've got all of our tools here. And we've got our selection tools, cropping, eyedropper. We have our retouching tools, such as the spot healing brush, patch tool, clone stamp, the brush, the eraser tool, which we're never going to use, the smudge, any of these. These should be taken out of Photoshop and shot. They're terrible tools. We're going to learn how to do this in a way that is non-destructive, meaning you can go back and change your mind, because if you're working with a client, that's what's going to happen. And also, as you learn something, you want to be able to say, oh my gosh, I made a mistake here. All I have to do is go back a couple of steps to redo it. When you start erasing pixels, smudging pixels, or blurring pixels, you're actually causing destruction to the original pixels that come with the photograph. So in this case, I say no. Then you've got your vector tools, your pen, your text, direct select, and your foreground and background. Right? So you might say to me, oh my gosh, how am I going to remember all this? Well, I have a total cheat sheet that I will give you. Also, if you hover over the tool, and let me use the mouse for this, it tells you what it is, the crop tool. I love it. You don't really have to remember any of this. You'll remember where a couple are, and I'll ask that you remember this shortcuts, because that's where the convenience and the efficiency starts to happen. So if I want the brush tool, I hit B. If I want the clone stamp tool, I hit S. If I want the dodging and burning, I hit O. You have this little, you see that little rectangle? Is that a triangle? Oh my gosh. Triangle over here. You know what that means?
There's multiple options.
Multiple options, exactly. There's roommates. So you can go in here and see who else lives there. So I may say, hey, grab a retouching tool, and you can grab all the spot healing brush, patch tool, content aware, move tool, all live in the same house, which is great. It's easy to keep all of that stuff organized. The default tool when I'm setting things up is V, or the move tool right here. Up here at the top, you have your options bar. And watch what happens as I change tools. M for marquee gives me options that are specific to the marquee. C for crop tool gives me options that are specific to the crop tool, and it gives me a temporary crop frame. B gives me brush options, opacity options, and flow options. Clone stamp gives me brush options, opacity, flow, and options about where to sample. Okay. So every tool is going to, this option bar up here will change. and give you options that are specific for that tool. All right. Now let's go look over here. We've got a bunch of different options. Essentials. Let's see, let's reset essentials. This is what it'll give you just by default. I like to have 3 specific panels open all the time. The adjustment panel, which gives me all of my options for adding an additional adjustment layer. My layers panel, because that's where all the magic happens. And my history panel, because that's where I can go back and forth through the steps I've done, and either if I go too far and I don't like it, I can just move back in the history panel and get rid of those options. And I can do a lot of different things in here. So I'm going to grab my history panel and drag it over so that it highlights that rectangle with color. And I'm going to drop it in there. Right, and then just adjust that a little bit. So now swatches and color are also tabbed in there, but history is the one I want. History, adjustments, and layers. Once I've got that, I can go to New Workspace and save it. And then if I come in and there's a bunch of things all over and it's like somebody had a big old party up in here and they're just like, whoo-hoo, you know, which I think it's harder to work. Right, if it's like that, it's going to be harder to work. You can come in, go to Amy Fall 14, reset Amy Fall 14, and it takes care of it. If you come in and there is no history, let's pretend that's not there, go to Window, and you can find history. You can also find things like the histogram, which when we do our photography project, you'll see I'm madly in love with. The Properties panel, which you'll need to be active when you start adding adjustment layers. That's how you adjust the adjustment layers. And sometimes I have the brush open. I think for the first exercise when we're doing some digital painting, we may get to that. And there's some tool presets if you get a little fancy. Now you'll notice I open those and now they're just all collapsed here in the second pane. And I can click on any of them, and if I don't want any of them, they're all just waiting here for me. Right? So this is our workspace. It tells us a couple of things. The file name, the percentage of the zoom. It's an RGB, 8-bit per channel. This file size is 22.9 megs. I think this is off my phone. That's like obscene. I can't see that I shot this with a real camera, but I think it's off my phone. You can also see different things like current tool, document profile, which will tell you the color space, Adobe Drive, if you have any information there. I think I like document profile, or document size seems pretty good. Now, if I open another file, I'm going to grab my fish, drag it over the dock at the bottom, over the Photoshop icon, and it's going to open up my fish. Where did my stinky lobster go? It's tabbed. Exactly. If you're used to using an older version of Photoshop, they may have all been floating in windows. If you hate the tabs, all you have to do is go to Window, Arrange, Float All in Windows. And then you can do that very simply. If you're like, I've got a lot of images open, I really need to organize this, you can grab the top, this little gray bar at the top of the image, drag it up, and you see that blue line? Drop it right in. But now we need to go get our fish and also tab it so that we have both of those files available. All right? So I think that's a pretty good overview of getting started in the workspace. So the next video, we're going to go going through getting started with different layer and layer options. Sound good?